Well, good day to you. It is May the 17th, and I hope you are having a better day today than you did yesterday, because if that's the case, then you are on the right track, my friend. Now, if this is your first time ever listening to Search for Signs, my name is Gary Willing, and what do we talk about? Well, we talk about the emergence of Maitreya and the Masters of Wisdom. We talk about why are they returning now to the everyday world, why is it important that they do so, and of course, what does it mean for you? Now, it's been almost 2.5 years that I started these videos, and I have about 300 or so videos that I put up so far, but the content of these videos and the real meat and potatoes of these videos is coming from the questions that come my way, because they help focus on what I want to talk about, how to talk about it, and so forth. But it really is important to look at it like this. It's really an inquiry. It's not you ask me a question and I give you the right answer and then that's it. Or at least it shouldn't be in your mind, because it's not like that for me. It's about us discovering this truth together, really, is what it amounts to. And in no way, shape, or form am I considering myself to be an authority on anything. Now, I do consider myself to be an ordinary person who has stumbled across some information, kind of like some dumb luck. I just happened to find it, read about it, started to inquire myself. It's changed my life, and I want to share it with you. But it really is for you to consider, and for you to consider for yourself. The other thing is, and I hate using this phrase, but I'm going to use it in this way because I think it's apropos, is believe me when I tell you this, I am not the slightest bit interested in changing your religious belief. You might not think that to be true, but it is really the truth for the way I see it. It's okay for me for you to believe something different than what I believe. But one thing I want you to consider, okay, is no matter what your belief is, no matter what your background is, what we are all facing today, the problems that are facing each and every one of us, are of a spiritual nature. Now, most of us compartmentalize spirituality into something other than our daily lives, right? Whether we're religious or whether and that religion is practiced the same way by millions of people, or if it's our own religion that we've only practiced for ourselves. We seem to compartmentalize it and keep it apart from our life, which really there is no truth to any of that. All in life is spiritual, really, and therefore because we are as a humanity facing some serious crises that are really jeopardizing all of our survival, then it's of a spiritual nature. It's a spiritual crisis. Now, in each and every case, whether it's an individual problem that we are facing, whether it's an illness that we are facing for ourselves, whether it's a family crisis, whether it's a work-related crisis, or it's these big problems like the environment, or social injustice, or political or economic divisions, or whatever the problem is, right? It's because we believe ourselves to be separate. And whether it's the media, whether it's political structures, whether it's the economic structures, whether it's our own educational structures or religious structures, there's not a lot in life today that's supporting and encouraging the truth that we are one, right? In nearly every case, our structures are teaching us the exact opposite and the wrong thing that we should be the way we should be seeing life, that we are all separate. It keeps us afraid of one another. It keeps us hating one another. We start to compete with one another. We start to fight against one another and so forth. But is there any reality to that? Well, I say it's a false reality, because and I have evidence to prove that that's false, because there's two pieces of evidence that are quite astounding, that are really showing each and every one of us that we are one, that we are divine, that we are all divine, that we all share that divinity. One thing is the miracles that are going on. There have been miracles that have been happening for decades, and if you don't believe me, check out the links in the description in each and every one of my videos, and that will get you headed in the right direction in terms of inquiring about these miracles. But healing waters, crosses of light, crop circles, UFO sightings, the Norwegian spiral, the Hindu milk miracle, visions of the Madonna, people being saved by accidents by angels are just a small list of the miracles that have been going on. Now, they've been happening to each and every religious group, and they've also been happening to people such as myself of no particular religious faith. They're giving us hope, and in each and every case, and therefore it's true to say that the hope for mankind is for all of mankind, which is another way of saying that we are one. The other thing are the problems, like I just listed. They too are showing us that we are one because each and every one of us are responsible for the big problems like the environment, social injustice, those kind of things, starvation even. And that's also each and every one of ours responsibility to help fix those problems. And even if those problems such as starvation, we can kind of keep it at arm's length and it doesn't really mean much to me. Believe it when I say this, and this is another way of saying, I'm sorry to say this again, it is affecting you. And what you're doing is affecting it. So we're all interconnected, is another way of saying it, and in a very real sense, right? And as time goes on, we're starting to see just how interconnected we all are. So the problems are teaching each and every one of us that we are one. Now, I talk about the emergence of Maitreya and the Masters of Wisdom, the return of the Masters and so forth. And this process has been going on for a few decades now. In fact, actually, if you broaden it out, the process has been going on for eons, really. But the teacher, Maitreya, has already come into a modern city and has been living in a modern city since July 19th, 1977, has actually started to speak on TV, to help waken humanity up to the truth that we are one, that we have to solve these problems together and so forth. Now, you would think there would be a lot of fanfare. You would think that he would announce himself as some kind of Messiah figure, but that's not what's happening. He's presenting himself as an ordinary person. And he's doing it because it's far more important for you to see the reality of the fact that we are one than the fact that he is a Messiah figure come back to teach all of humanity. But in time, we will start to see him as our elder brother, as a teacher perhaps, or our waited teacher that we've waited for the whole time. But that doesn't really matter as much as the teachings that he's giving to us at this time. Now, Maitreya has already started to give some preliminary teachings and has been for a few decades. But the most important teaching that he has given us so far is without sharing there could be no justice, without justice there could be no peace, and without peace there could be no future. But I want you to consider something, whether you've heard this information before or not. That is not just a teaching, it is a mantra. Without sharing there could be no justice. Without justice there could be no peace. And without peace, there could be no future. If you say that with focused intention, you will feel your heart start to awaken to that truth. Now, why is this? It's because in each and every one of our hearts, we know this to be true, that we are one. The path to peace is a path to oneness, which is what we all really desire, want, wish for, long for. And it's for each one of us now to start to see what we can do, educate ourselves, because society is not going to educate us on this rate at this moment in time, but it's for each one of us to decide whether it's true or not for ourselves and to put it into practice, really. Now, it will be easier as time goes on because the teacher will start to inspire and galvanize humanity to help manifest that. But right now, we have to do it ourselves. We have to look at it, inquire about it, talk about it amongst ourselves even, and eventually put into practice and manifest. Now, again, to get back to the questions, I have a couple questions I want to cover in this video, and I do have an article I want to read, and I'm going to set it up because I think it's important. But anyway, so the first question made me laugh, actually. Comes from MK2 Tech, and he was responding to a video I actually put up last year this month. So it doesn't matter what day you listen to these videos on. It's, it's more important to kind of look at it and take it to heart, I guess. Is Raj Patel Maitreya? Was the interview of Raj Patel on PBS really Maitreya? Was the title of that video. But he asked the question, do you make up all this shit as you go? To answer your question, honestly, yes, I do. I make it all up, and let me explain, okay? I don't have a production crew. I don't have a script I read. I do all this on the fly. So yes, I make up all this shit as I go. I make up all my dad jokes as I go, which you might consider shit, but I tried it to be funny, but maybe not. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. It doesn't really matter. Yes, I make it all up as I go. But, and this is for MK2 Tech and everyone else, you might not believe what I'm saying is true, and that's fine. This is for you to consider and for you to consider for yourself, right? I know this to be 100% true. The information that I'm giving you about Maitreya, about the masters coming back, the experiences that I've said and shared with you about Maitreya are 100% true. They might sound crazy, but they're true, And in time, we will start to see that Maitreya is who myself and others have been saying for so long. He is the one awaited by all the religions, but it doesn't matter whether you believe that or not. Look at the evidence, the miracles, the problems, and look at it. Is it not evidence that we are one? That is the most important thing that we could discuss, talk about, look at, inquire for ourselves, really. And like I said, manifest. So that I know to be true. The video itself and the material within the video and how it's presented, yeah, I make it all up as I go. So I'm sorry you have to hear about it from me. You can't hear about it from somebody who's more eloquent. Doesn't really matter, but you're stuck with me for the time being. But thank you for that, MK2 Tech. All right, now the next question is of a religious nature, actually. And like I said, most of the questions that come my way are religious. I'm not presenting it like I know the answer to this. It's just for us to inquire for ourselves. But anyway, what is your take of sinners burning forever in the lake of fire, as I had been taught? Are most humans, past, present, and future, going to burn forever? Or is that just a tool of the religions? Just wondering. Well, David, I think you answered your own question, actually. It is a tool of the religions to keep humanity in fear. How can we be one humanity under the one Father and yet have a hell, right? Think about it. If you really think about it, in your heart of hearts, do you believe it to be true or not? If you do, then believe it. If it makes you a better person and makes you live a more harmless life, then by all means believe it. And if you do believe that there's a heaven and a hell, then be somebody who believes there's a heaven and a hell and that you have to believe in Jesus in order to get there, but yet want to see the ending of hunger, for instance, or save the environment, because that's what's important. But these dogmas, these weights that the religious groups and it's not just the religious groups, but they're extremely guilty of doing this. We are all guilty of shackling each other with our own beliefs, really, have really kept humanity stuck. But think about it, David. And I'll put it like this. I'll put it on me, for instance. If it's true, if there's any truth to that, right? I love my daughter. She's 16 years old. She's a teenager, and exhibits all the qualities of a teenager. Sometimes I don't even, the only reason why I know she's here is because I hear the toilet flush in the shower, right? I don't even see her or talk to her sometimes. I want to, right? And the times that she speaks to me and the times that she talks to me, it is like heaven for me, For me to hang out with her, that would be like a living hell. So you see what I'm saying? But also, too, if it was true that there was a heaven, right, and a hell, and let's just say I happen to make it to heaven, right? And then some years later, my daughter dies and goes to hell. I couldn't live in a blissful state of happiness and sing hymns along with Jesus, knowing that my daughter, the one that I love, is in hell. That makes no sense. Makes absolutely zero sense. Would you be able to do that? Right? But even then, if you look at it, it is just as unpleasant for me to think about hell as it is for me to think about a heaven where you just kind of go there and that's it. What do you do? You know what I'm saying? Do you get to watch TV? Do you get to watch your favorite TV program over and over again? And do you get to watch The Sixth Sense with Bruce Willis and forget the ending? So every time you watch it, you're totally surprised. Do you get to eat all the dessert that you want and never gain any weight? I mean, is that heaven? I don't know. But to me, it's kind of like a living hell too, because you're not really growing as a person. You're not facing the challenges and learning and growing. To me, that's what life and divinity is really all about, really. Discovering more of who you are, really, and being aware of it, being able to manifest that, I mean, Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is at hand. It's right here. It's what you make of it right now. You don't have to die and go somewhere to go to heaven, really. But again, if it makes you a better person to believe that, then believe it. But I don't, because I guess I know the source of where it came from. It came from the churches who didn't know anything about it. They just kind of put it in there to kind of keep people. I don't think Jesus talked about it at all, really. Jesus, when they talk about the 10 Commandments, Jesus was always seeming like he was trying to teach them something broader than that. He even said about the Sabbath, God made the Sabbath for man, not man for the Sabbath. But it can be translated into every one of the other 10 Commandments. So it's not about following a set of rules and then when you die, you get punished. It's about living here now, living within the law of harmlessness, the law of cause and effect. What you sow shall you reap. In all its manifestations, really. I don't think there's any universal moral code that each and every one of us have to live or we will die and go to hell, But that's just my personal take. You asked me for my take. I didn't just insert it in there. Had I been my grandfather, I would have asserted it whether you asked for it or not. But like I said, I couldn't live personally in a state of blissful awareness or whatever in heaven, knowing that the people that I love or even the people that I mildly like, are suffering the way that it is. You know what I mean? So, I don't think there's any truth to it. But anyway. All right, but thank you for the question. Now, the other thing too is, and this goes along the lines this is a snippet of one of Maitreya's teachings. He says, the self alone matters. He says, the self alone matters. You are that self, an immortal being. Suffering is caused by identification with anything and everything which is not the self. Ask yourself, who am I? You will see that you are identified either with matter, the body, or with thought, the mind, or with power, spirit. But you are none of these. Mind, spirit, and body are the temples of the Lord. The self experiences in these the, quote, the supreme being and becoming of the Lord. Being is eternal. Becoming is the unfolding in time and space. The self experiences both. So it doesn't really relate to, I think, a heaven and a hell where you go to there and that's it. The other thing that Maitreya said to me, and I'll share it with you, he goes, I never judge anyone on whether they're good or bad. I only notice the good things that they do. So when I first heard him say that, I started thinking about the Christ as a judge. And he's saying that he's not the judge. Now, you might not believe Maitreya is the Christ, and that's your belief. But anyway, but the Christ doesn't judge us on whether they were good or bad. He only notices the good things that we do, right? So hopefully that helps. Now, lastly, I want to read an article from Benjamin Crumb's master entitled "Leisure is the Key." Now, you might have listened to the video I put up, the last video I put up, where I talked about one of the problems that I see going on in my own life, in my own company, is a lack of workforce, right? And it's not only my company, but it's happening to other companies that I know of and have talked to people with and stuff. And in a lot of different industries, even there's a lot of hiring going on, or a lot of people, companies wanting to hire people, but nobody wanting to work. Okay. Now there's a narrative saying, well, it's because the government's just paying them money. They're making more money just sitting on their bum and not doing anything. Well, they need to get back to work. You know what I mean? It's causing too many problems. That's the general narrative of things. Now, it might be happening in your country. It might not. I apologize. I live in the United States, and the media is totally focused on the United States, right? So, but it's a problem here in the United States. I'm sure it's a problem in other countries too, because what happens here happens there, and there happens here for sure. But anyway, I notice for me personally in my company, it's affecting me personally. And I started thinking about it, started looking at it from this perspective, right? Now, it's a rather different perspective than you might get from the media, but what I think is happening is the generation that's coming of age now, that's creating the workforce, right, does not have the same fears that my generation and earlier generations had about working. You know, the saying, you must work or starve, right, has been an age-old saying. And Master even talks about it in this article, right? But I equated it back to 12 years ago during the housing crisis here in the United States. Banks thought for sure that people would do anything and everything to keep their house. Well, when the you-know-what hit the fan back 12 years ago, people just said, you know what, you can keep the house. I don't really want it. And if you had talked to a banker back then, they were shocked that people's attitudes was that. They had kind of shedded their fear of losing their home. They were like, well, I got my car, I have my PlayStation or whatever it is. I didn't have much money invested in this house. Well, shoot, I didn't like the wallpaper anyway, so I'm out, right? Or I didn't like the location. I'll get a house in a few years anyway. It would be okay. And it caused the housing market to tank, right? Now, fast forward to today. I think that what's going on right now is a direct result of what happened last year with the lockdowns, right? But people are starting to realize that they do not need to pursue materialism in the way that they were before, right? I'm not saying they aren't materialistic, but they don't feel the need to do that. And Benjamin Creme's master said that the United States, especially because we're kind of a gluttonous nation for so long, will have to go through a wilderness experience where we have to simplify our needs. I think we're starting to see that now. And the younger generation and even, some of the older generations are starting to realize, I don't need that new car. I talk to my daughter a lot and like, hey, you want to go to the mall? And this was years ago even. She's, I'm fine. I don't want to buy anything. Or, and actually she wouldn't bought it. I would have bought it. She would, you don't have to buy me anything. And it always kind of took me back because she doesn't seem quite as materialistic as even I was at that age, right? But it's affecting the workforce because I think that these people are starting to shed their fear of having to work all the time. To have, the fear of accumulating a bunch of material goods and, things that they don't really need anyway. They're living simpler lives. They're going through the wilderness experience. And this country will, according to the masters, will go through it. And I think we are starting to go through it right now. But it's going to lead to something. Now, I want to set it up like this because I think the master says it best and I can't really add to it. But I do want to set it up. True freedom is related to true justice. You can't have one without the other. And I know in this country, the right-wing conservative party is fighting for what they think is freedom. And the progressives or the left are fighting for what they think is justice. They really do need each other. You can't have true freedom, which is leisure, really. It's not being able to do whatever you want, whenever you want, to whatever you want. It's leisure. It's being able to discover your divinity within yourself. Being able to create that and manifest that divinity, whether it's some kind of creative art, or if it's just the art of living or whatever, to create that joy that comes from that. That is true leisure. You can't experience true joy and true creativity when you're working 3 jobs 7 days a week from sun up to sundown for little pay. You can't do that. So it's going to take what we talk about with the principle of sharing to bring about the justice that it needs, that we will eventually create that freedom that we all will need to experience in order to see ourselves as divine, really. And leisure is the key. That's the title of the article, but really is the key. It's the key to our future happiness. It's the key to our future, really. And I think that the generations of today are starting to manifest that desire for leisure. So, and it's affecting the work environment. And it's going to be some growing pains until we do, because what worked, even for my company, that made it successful, people wanting to work 46 hours a week and wanting to make this certain amount of money. The younger generation do not want that. They want to feel free. And this is really where I think it comes into play. So hopefully you'll listen to the video all the way through and hear the end of it. So, all right, Leisure is Key by the Master. Among the many problems with which humanity is faced, none looms larger in men's minds than that of unemployment. In the developing world, millions have never known regular work, while even the industrialized nations see each year the workless total inexorably mount. Quote, men must work or starve, unquote, says the age-old adage. Yet need this necessarily be so? Without doubt, the main reason for increasing unemployment is the discovery and application of the new technology. More and more, the robot is replacing man in the more complex manufacturing processes. No man can compare in speed of operation and repetitive accuracy with the sophisticated machines now in use. This is as it should be. Many may lament the loss of human skills earned through long apprenticeship and training, but man is born for a higher and more worthy efforts. Why should men compete with mere machines? Man is an evolving God, and foolish would it be to place a limitation on his creative possibilities. Naught there is which with time he may not do. Why then lament the passing of a stage in man's long journey to perfection, which allows him at last the leisure to expand and grow? Man stands now on the threshold of a new precipitation of himself, his purpose, and the world in which he lives. The new awareness will invoke undreamt of skills and talents which yet await expression, and allow man to enter the abode of gods. When man sees himself truly as he is not, will prevent the manifestation of his divine powers. On all sides this glory will be seen, lighting a path to the farthest stars. Until that blessed time, man must learn and train himself in leisure. Without leisure, man has little chance to grow. Leisure must be seen as the prerequisite for that creative thought and action which will transform all life for men. In an age of competition, the age-old adage holds, work alone confers the right to eat. But man is ready to experience a new relationship. A new and caring cooperation beckons him to be his brother's keeper, and to safeguard the right of all to the necessities of life. More and more machines will free men to be themselves. Leisure will ensure that each man can reach his full potential, reflective of his stage upon the journey to perfection, adding his gifts for the enrichment of the whole. Thus will men see a flowering such as none today can imagine, but which one day will show men to each other as the gods they are. Leisure is the key, and to ensure leisure men must share. Millions starve and countless more grind out their lives in hopeless poverty today. No longer must this sickness be accepted as the norm. No longer can the tensions thus engendered be supported by mankind. Entering a new age which machines will cater for the needs of all, men must share as brothers and walk together towards the dawn.
And help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.